Just a few days ago, we all heard the news about Jerry Stiller's passing. And there was a great deal of reaction from everybody around the world because Jerry was a guy that really touched an awful lot of people with his comedy and his generosity. And it was 15 years ago that I had the opportunity to sit down with Jerry for our Back on the Block television show in New York. And I posted those two videos previously. They were basically 4-minute and 2.5-minute episodes from almost a full day with Jerry. So after I posted those, I realized that I had done a very special video for Jerry and his family, where I took all the outtakes and cut them together in a 35-minute video of Jerry really telling his story and pouring his heart out and making us cry and laugh at the same time. So to all of you Jerry Stiller fans out there, I think you'll enjoy that video and watch it in honor of Jerry and give him a salute and say thank you. Thank you, Jerry, for all the memories and being so kind and generous to me. Today, many know him as Frank. Others know him as half of Stiller and Mira. But for over 50 years, he has known how to make all of us laugh. Join us as we go back on the block with the incomparable Jerry Stiller. Here with Jerry Stiller at Katz's. You know this place well, Jerry.
If you came to the Lower East Side, you worked during the week, you went to school, at the end of the week, whatever money you had, you'd have delicatessen, pastrami or salami. It was like a little feast that you had to celebrate the fact that you did something with your life. And we'd come here to Katz's. Later on, we used to come to Katz's when we were working at the Phoenix Theater. Between matinee and an evening, we'd come over here and have whatever it was they were serving. Of course, it didn't do you much good to eat at Katz's because you were belching and you were...
It didn't help. It didn't.
Yeah, but you were in touch with your life, so to speak, you know, the gift that was given to you, delicatessen.
Now, you mentioned you were a kid here, too. You moved 11 or 12 times by the time you were 12 or 13.
I have a photographic memory of my early beginning. Born in 1927, that was me. They called, any kid who was born in 27 was called a Lindbergh baby, because that was the time Lindbergh made the trip across, and so they used to call me the Lindbergh baby. Of course, the Lindbergh baby was kidnapped.
You're still here. June 8th is your birthday. It's coming up.
That's right. It's coming up again.
A lot of things revolve around your birthday. I noticed in the book, you told a wonderful story about helping your mother study for a citizenship exam. For what date was it?
That was
June 8th.
1937. I was 10 years old at the time, and I helped her. And you know, all the questions they ask you, who was the first president of the United States? Yeah. And she knew all the answers.
Who was it?
Huh? What are you trying to do with this on television? But anyway, we all...
I know.
Thomas Jefferson, a wonderful guy. He had slaves more than
It's all right.
All right, go ahead.
You had a wonderful line after your mother got your citizenship. In your book, you said you felt a little guilty about that because you were a citizen by birth.
And not only that, I could run for president.
That's true. You had a great line. You called yourself the American Ghana.
That's right, American Ghana, meaning you can get away with anything in this country. A kid coming over here who was born out of wedlock. Oh, what?
My God.
Well, leave it alone. Okay,
That's true.
Won't cut that.
We'll cut that out.
Yeah, okay. Well, we never did know who and when my mother was married until about a year ago. Brian Anderson, who's with the New York Historical Society, who is part of our city government, they have all the archival information on where your parents came from, where they landed, how long they were married. I didn't know my mother and father were married even until maybe about a year ago. I always had the feeling something went on. Mm-hmm. And then he showed me the papers that they were married in 1925, 2 years before, and there was a judge who was there and a rabbi and all those things. So I'm very fortunate because I'm free of all this feeling of being a you-know-what.
I know. In talking about your mom and dad,
yes,
you were lucky. Your dad was with you till he was 100
and 3 years old.
We don't have any documentation on that. But he did say when the neurologist asked him, when were you born, Mr. Stiller? He said, I voted for Lincoln. So my father was a joker. He was a New York City bus driver.
Right.
When we moved down here to the east side, I was 12 years old. He drove a bus down on the Lower East Side from Lewis Street down to South Ferry. And I used to ride the bus with him.
For 20 years.
Yes, he did it for 20 years when he retired.
You also talk a lot about in your childhood down here, about street games that you played. You played all the games we all played.
Yeah.
You know, kick the can and
Johnny on the Pony.
Johnny on the Pony,
Yeah.
stickball.
Johnny and the Pony is illegal now.
Is it?
After Brokeback Mountain, you don't do that.
All right, I'll take you back here. A long time ago, you were playing stickball with Ralphie Salzman.
Well, he's a fictitious name. His real name was Adolf Hausman. And Adolf was a kid who, even at the age of 12 and a half, 13 years old, was about 6'1". I was what I am now. That's before I ate the eggs. But we played stickball. Somehow or other, I got into a fight with him over some stupid thing. And I was trying to prove myself because I was a sissy from East New York.
Right.
I just moved in here. And I picked a fight with this guy because I thought I could beat him. And I swore that he had been training for this fight. He actually had gone up to Stillman's gym on 50th Street, and he had his hands dipped in cement to make them harder. So he beat the hell out of me. He killed me. He almost destroyed me. I was almost in tears. And I went up to my house after it was over, and my mother looked at me, and my back was battered and bruised. I waited her to say something. She said, next time you'll know better. And that was the biggest battle I had in my life until I met my wife.
Back again, just a little bit more about the Lower East Side.
Sure.
You did something that I did. You used to ride on the handlebars of bikes.
My cousin Leo Lieberman, who was a war hero, my eyes got the Bronze Star, took me down the bike on a hill called Snake Hill, but it wasn't here on the east side. It was back in East New York, and he was. It gave me. My cousin Leo is still with us. He landed in France the second day on the second wave, and he was wounded a couple of times. And he was my hero, and somehow or other he came all the way from Canarsie at that time into East New York, and with his bike took me down the hill. And from then on in, I always wanted to ride a bike. Now, the big thing about riding a bike for me was that all my life, I wanted to ride a bike with no hands.
Right.
Is this interesting?
It is interesting.
Okay. To ride a bike, when every kid could ride a bike with no hands. I was scared to ride a bike with no hands. And so one day, when I was 57 years old, I was on a road in Nantucket, and there was a highway, it was clear. I said, I'm 57 years old. Today I'm going to ride with no hands. And God help me, I started to pedal, and I could feel myself riding with no hands. My hands were up in the air. And I said, how long can I do this? And I looked ahead, there was no cars coming, and I was pumping along, and I realized, I looked at my clock at one point, dangerous, 8 minutes, no hands. I have no pictures to prove this.
Yeah, but that you said in your book a wonderful line. It was the first time you weren't afraid anymore.
Yeah, it taught me about fear.
Yeah. One thing that you talk about was the badge of honor back here and in Brooklyn. That was getting hit by a car or almost getting hit by a car.
Yeah, get run over.
Yeah.
But I didn't. My brother was almost run over. There were three of us. My sister Doreen. I was the oldest. I was probably about 5. Connie was 3. Doreen was 2. My mother was pushing the car, the carriage, and it was in Williamsburg at the time. And my brother was here, and my sister Doreen. Somehow or other, my brother ran out, and the car came. My brother went down. The car screeched to a halt. And my brother ended up with a black eye. And then people came up to me, and kids come up, I hear your brother almost got home. I said, yeah. Oh, yeah,
Almost was good.
The other thing that, if you had your tonsils out, that was a big deal too.
Why, ate ice cream?
Ate ice cream, but they promised ice cream. They didn't give me no ice cream. And to this day, I feel betrayed. When I see a good humor truck.
No ice cream.
Oh, with you.
You met a lot of, there's a lot of families in that time. A lot of tension in the household, and You know, you recounted a lot of times when there were fights going on, but it was part of your growing up and part of the life.
Well, a lot of people, the Depression was a place where, in our family, nobody knew about a depression. All we knew is that my father didn't have a job.
Right.
And it wasn't like the whole world was had the same problem. But my mother was right on my father. Go out and get a hack, which meant get a fare. My father's nobody is driving cabs now today. Nobody paying for cabs. He was almost, so he ran out of the house. He came back a couple of hours later, threw a quarter on the table. He says, there. And she said, now I can get some milk. But my father was in tears. I'll never forget that. And that was the period where I at one point said maybe someday I can do something about this 5-year-old mind. But my father always had a few pennies to take us to see vaudeville shows.
Right.
And that's where everybody was laughing. The fact that people had no jobs, people being dispossessed, put out on the street. They went to the vaudeville shows and people were laughing. And I looked at these comics up there and I got turned on by this. It made me feel funny. And my father, when he wasn't driving a cab, was always a funny guy anyway in the house. He'd make fun. He had family meetings. He'd get up, make a fool of himself. He used to go into the bedroom, put on my cousin Beatty's fur coat, put on her hat, put a flower in his mouth, come out to the whole family and start doing Carmen. Da, 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 da. And my mother said, look, he's doing Carmen, he ain't got a job. But, you know, people got through, and we got through because we listened to the radio and heard all these wonderful comedians, mostly Eddie Cantor, who we loved. And I used to send away for tickets to see Eddie Cantor.
Right.
And they sent back 5 tickets to see Eddie Cantor. And we went down to Rockefeller Center, the 8th floor. That's where Conan O'Brien does the show. That studio is still there, the same thing. And then the announcer would come out, Harry Von Zell, and the orchestra was tuning up. And then out of nowhere comes Eddie Cantor running out. Are you all here? You came? Where'd you come from? Oh, come on, we're going to have a show. And he never held back one thing. He always let you know he was Jewish, which was a shocker because we lived at a time when there was a lot of anti-Semitism in the country at the time. There was a thing called the Bund, Fritz Kuhn, and there was a guy named Father Coughlin, who was an anti-Semite. He had a Sunday radio show. He was a rabid anti-Semite, and the country was looking for somebody to blame it all on. And Eddie Cantor would always let it out. And he sang a song, if I were president, he stopped and do it. The Jewish guy going to be the president? I said, my God, we can go to the White House, we could sleep over.
Now talk to me about Henry Street Playhouse.
Well, when we moved down here to the Lower East Side, there were a number of wonderful settlement houses that existed here. There was the Madison House, there was the Christodora House, the Education Alliance, and there was the Henry Street Settlement, which is also connected to the Henry Street Playhouse. And one day I went by the Henry Street, I must have been about 15 years old, and I heard some music. I went inside and there was somebody sitting at the piano in a darkened theater playing night and day. And there was a blue light on the cyclorama, and I was so entranced by it that when he was finished, I went up to the man on the stage who was doing the scenery. I said, how do I become an actor? He says, go up and see Mrs. Lane. Who's Mrs. Lane? Well, I went upstairs, and there was this very patrician lady. That's the only way I can describe her. Almost like an Eleanor Roosevelt feeling to her, as I might remember it. And I said, Mr. Brown said I'm an actor. She says, well, we're doing a show. What's your name? I said, Jerry. Jerry, we're doing a show called Lady Precious Stream, and I want you to play Shea Ping Quay. We're going to be doing, come down and rehearse. Well, that was the beginning of how I became involved with Mrs. Esther Lane, and she's still in my head. She's an inspiration.
And all those early influences in your life and things where people encourage you to get into things stick with you a long time. I'm going to give you another theater, Cherry Lane Theater. You walked by that theater one day. What happened?
Well, I needed a job. I was out of the service, and I wanted to be an actor because I was selling magazines door to door, and I found that people weren't getting the magazines. And I went up to the salesman, and people ain't getting the subscriptions. says, what do you want to do about it? I said, I quit. I can't go on like this. He says, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to become an actor. If I can sell door to door, I can be an actor. He says, well, this is the best job you ever had. So the next day I
So
went
you quit
down.
that job.
I quit the job. Next day I was in Greenwichville at Cherry Lane Theater, as you mentioned. It was a hot summer day, and there was a guy sweeping the sidewalk. He was the producer from Yale, young guy. I said, do you have any job for actors? He says, can you paint scenery? I said, no, but I'll try. He says, go in the yard and speak to Rod Steiger. So I went in the yard, and this was 1947, and there was this big husky guy in shorts and with a brush, and he's painting. I said, excuse me. I said, are you Rod Steiger? He said, yes. I said, they told me you could help me paint scenery. He says, what's your name? I said, Jerry Stiller. He said, you ever painted a flat before, Jerry? I said, no. He said, up and down. He gives me the brush. Guy calls him, says, Rod, there's a phone call for you. He goes out, takes the phone call. He comes back and says, well, I'll be seeing you. I says, where are you going? He says, I got a job. I'm playing Christ at the Rooftop Theater. So I started painting scenery, and he said goodbye. Well, anyway, that season I actually got on stage with B. Arthur and a Berger. Then there were people like Marv Silbershed and Mike
Do you
Gazzard.
think that could happen today?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
They're always looking for people who can paint scenery.
Right.
So that's how I got my first job in the theater at the Cherry Lane, and it's still, it's still part of my life.
When you look at your career, you've done a lot of things in and out, but New York City seems to always be part of your experience and what you bring to whatever role you play.
Many of the actors in the 50s moved out west, and it was the time when Johnny Carson decided to pick up roots and go out west. And when that happened, everybody went west. Merv Griffin was on the air, he followed shortly. But Ann and I decided to stay here because we said we couldn't ride a horse, because every actor who was a New York actor had to ride a horse.
Right.
They knew how to ride the horse, but they couldn't stop the horse. They used to tell the story, whoa, and they'd fall off the horse and they had to cut the scene. We just decided that our life was here, and although we would work out there, and we did a lot of work here and there, mostly we worked here, we did our act here. In my contract was that you have to fly me back to New York, so I could spend, if I did 2 shows, 3 shows there, I would fly back and do 1 week here in New York.
And you met Ann in New York City.
Met Ann in an agent's office.
Before you met Ann, you were there with somebody named B in that agent's
That was
office.
how, this story is, for me it's apocryphal. For you in the audience it might be boring, but anyway. I was looking to be a comedian by myself. I didn't know if I could do it by myself. So I met this very beautiful, tall, lovely woman named B.
Redheaded.
B. Mortensen. She was sweet. And I said, why don't you and I do an act together? Well, she said, okay, we'll try to do an act. Well, after a while, I was trying to do more than an act with her, and she knew it, trying to dump me. And here we were, looking for work together. So me and B went into this agent's office, and among the many waiting to see the agent was this very innocent-looking girl. And B says, oh, Ann, I want you to meet Jerry Stiller. And there was Ann, who had auburn hair and very bright eyes, smelled nice, I always said. And she shook hands with me, and then they called her in to see the agent. Well, 2 seconds later, she comes out screaming and crying. I said, what happened? And she said, he chased me all around the room. And I was, act like this. And then they called my name. Jerry Stiller, go and see Sam. I went in to see the agent. I'd seen him before. I said, Sam, the first thing, why'd you chase that girl all around the room? He says, because I like her. Now it's your turn. So he chased me, and I ran out. There she was still with her friend B. And B says, why don't you take this girl out for coffee? And
So B basically dumped you and gave you to
B
Ann.
dumped me, gave me to Ann. Well, anyway, 6 months later, we were married. I was taken by her, and she took me.
You said after you were married, you looked over at Ann and said, you'll never be alone again.
Did I say that?
You did. It's on page. I can tell you.
All right,
it's
I
on.
believe you.
We're going to go back to a wonderful chapter, a new chapter in your life,
Okay.
going to Seinfeld. You were in your 60s, you and Ann were, and you were feeling kind of low in your career, and you went down to Atlantic City and opened at one of the Trump places.
Right. it's one of those, what do they call those, the phoenix rises from the ashes. And so we had really lost our manager in a lot of ways. But we still had what we laughingly called an act. So we went to Atlantic City, and incredibly, we did an act that was 20 years old, and the audience exploded. And we were getting standing ovations, blah, blah, blah. So I said, let's forget our manager. Let's see where life takes us without a manager. So a wonderful, incredible man with great insight came up to me at a party at June Havoc's home. Michael Hardig. I'm mentioning names. He's no longer with us. He changed my life. Michael changed my life. He says, I can see you back.
And this is in your 60s.
I'm in 60s. He says, I'll sign you for a year. And he said, I'll tell you one thing. I never lie in the green room. Now, what lie? You know what lying in the green room is? I'll tell you, you're good when you're lousy. So for 1 year, he signed me, and almost instantaneously, my life changed. I got a call from Tony Randall at the National Actors Theater. Jack Klugman were doing 3 Minutes. I got into that play. 5 minutes later, they called me. They, who are they? Larry David calls me from L.A. There's a role here on a show called Seinfeld. We want you to replace the father. I said,
now tell everybody, what'd you do?
I said, who's Seinfeld? And there I was at an NBC read-through the first day. There was Larry, and there was Jerry Seinfeld, and Michael Richards, and Jason, and all the machos from NBC, and Julia Louis, and this woman named Estelle Harris. There she is.
Right there?
But they wanted me to do, and Larry said to me, look, I want you to play the character this way. You're this woman who, Estelle Harris.
She talks like that. She'll scream at you. She'll holler at you. And I want you to
play it down so that it's a good contrast. I says, okay, I'll do that. He says, the other thing, your son is Jason. He's got no hair. I want you to wear a bald wig. I said, all right. So we start rehearsing.
Against your instincts?
I have no. At this point, my instincts to get to work, keep the job. For a whole 4 days, I'm playing this role down, and there's nothing going on between myself and Estelle. It's not funny, and I know it. But they don't say nothing in this business. They don't tell you anything till they fire you. So knowing what is going to happen, just before we were shooting the last rehearsal for the show to be shot in front of the audience, she starts screaming at me. She said,
You're the one who ruined his life. You never were a good role model.
About Jason.
You never were there for him. You were a lousy father.
I says, you're the one who you're the one who spoiled him. You slept in bed with him all day. You made sandwiches for him. You never let him get out of the right. And they all started to laugh.
Right.
And at that point, Jason comes over to me and says, Jerry, don't be afraid to hit me. So he says, can I have the key to the car, Pop? I went, bang! And at that point, Estelle Harris says,
Can I hit him too?
and Larry David says, Estelle, only one person can hit Jason at a time. Then I said to Larry, I says, I got to take off the bald wig. I can't do the wig. Can I have my real hair? He said, okay, have the real hair. I've never worked on a show like that in my life, and you can tell why the show is such a huge success, because not just me. They let things happen between the actors that were very real, organic. I always said there was no air between us. There was no judgment. There was no, you're doing the line the right way, or you should do it this way. And Larry David would actually, this was a guy who would write the lines for you while you're on the set. That was the genius of the show.
You and he must have connected as New Yorkers, a lot of the same background.
Well, all I know is he was there he had great awareness of comedy and how much an actor goes through, a comic actor, to make it funny, because he was like that. At the time, before he was doing what he's doing now, he was a comic who did not, at that time, realize his potential. So he had great empathy for everybody. I always felt that about Larry.
Now, you talked about you're idolizing a lot of these people as you've seen it. I have to tell you, Jerry, you are an idol to many, many, many people. You have to understand. You understand that.
I'm a fraud.
No, you're not. This has been
That's
an incredible time.
well.
I'll tell you.
I'm enjoying every
I'm
moment.
just.
Thank you.
I wish I could sit here for 10 more hours.
Who was this guy?
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
God, you're Here we are, your alma mater, Seward Park High School.
Yeah, I got here in 42 and left in 44.
And you lived about, what, 6 blocks down that way?
More than that. You see, I used to see that building. It blocks the river. I lived
Yeah.
on the Vladeck houses. That was a housing project. And I used to kind of run here every morning because I was always late. My mother used to wake me up, make the sandwiches and all that, and I was late. She gave me a nickel to take the bus, and I never would take the bus. I tried
Pocket the nickel?
Pocket the nickel. I raced the bus. If I could beat the bus, I got in time before they locked all the doors.
What time was the doors locked?
8:30, right on the button. And there used to be like an accordion, a group of kids who were always at the last minute. We would squeeze in, and we keep saying to the monitors, we used to call them schnippies, let us in, please, let us in, please, please. And the guy said, okay. And when we got in, we'd say expletive words. You son of a snippy, you know. And we had this. We hated them, but they let us in, and so we were saved. I was late a lot, and
Why?
they had.
Why were you late a lot?
Because I'm still late a lot.
Are you?
I'm still late.
You
I'm
were
late.
on time today.
I know today because I'm for you, Hank.
That's
No, but I had a late problem.
This school right over at Seward Park High must be a building full of memories for you over there.
It was a school in which, when I was there, we had a terrible football team, and as I remember it, when they decided to take it off the program because we lost everybody, we went out on strike to bring it back. That's the kind of school we were. Went down to City Hall in March to bring back football because we lost something, I don't know, a lot of games.
Is there a girlfriend you can remember from over there?
Well, that was yes, now that you bring it up.
You're smiling.
Yes, I smiled because I was in love with this girl. She was a very sweet, beautiful girl. She reminded me of something out of Tom Sawyer, like Becky Thatcher with brown hair. And I used to say to her, Annie, her name was Annie Goldhaber, can I take your books home, carry your books home from school? And she said yes. And we'd walk down Grand Street, right down here, and we'd pass the Henry Street Playhouse. And I said, you know, someday, Annie, I'm going to be playing on a show here. I want to be an actor. And that was the last time I saw Annie Goldhaber.
Right.
Except at this event in which Elliot Spitzer was there, was running for governor, came over to me and says, you know, Jerry, you used to carry my mother's books home from school.
You're making this
I'm
up.
not making it up. I'm not making it up. And he says, and we have a joke in the family. If you'd married my mother, I could have played Gaylord Fokker in Meet the Parents.
You definitely are.
I'm not making that up. And somebody, this really happened. And
I would, there's got to be 2 degrees of separation from Jerry Stiller and everybody you meet. It's amazing.
in life, yeah, it's that kind of thing.
And you have a plaque in there, don't you?
I have not seen it.
You haven't?
But somebody told me that it exists.
Let's go see your plaque. You
Want
want to go
to see
and
my
take a
plaque?
look at it?
All right. I'm
And,
not going to break down.
Is it
am I?
past 8:30?
We,
Don't let us
we
in.
get in under the wire here.
All right.
Those schnippies, they're always.
Here we are, Seward Park.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Remember.
Look at this. Do you remember any of this?
I don't remember a thing.
And who's this good-looking guy right here?
Oh God. And who am I with? Jesus. Does it say? Look at that. What is that? I'm trying to remember. Oh God. It's not a movie, is it? Is it a movie? It might have been. Sure. It probably is something. It might have been Seize the Day. No, it couldn't be that. The Hollow Boy. Oh, wait a while. I know. That's. Oh God, she's a wonderful actress, and we did Shakespeare in the Park together. And yeah, this is. I played the part of this
You look
guy
like a
from
tough guy.
Washington Heights. I was just a violinist, kind of. Yeah.
Now, you're not going to tell me you played basketball.
Badly. I was one of those. I would foul out four fouls in 4 minutes and a fist fight.
What was your best subject?
Oh God, if I can say anything, it was probably English. It was my second language. I actually had a great English teacher. Her name was Mrs. Stiller, so I couldn't miss. She was
Are you
my
kidding?
no, I'm not making it
That's
up.
amazing.
She was my father's uncle's wife, and they were both teachers in school. And Fanny Stiller taught English here, and I was in the class, and she said to me, "You know, this neighborhood is having problems, and I'd like you to get up in class and just start a discussion of how we can bring people together." And she said, "You got to get up, Jerry, because none of these kids are going to do it. This is and we Stillers got to stick together." Well, I got up, and I started to say, you know. And remember, these kids were, a lot of...
You're 14, 15?
Yeah, 15, 16, whatever. I said, well, instead of thinking of what separates us as people, you remember we had Irish, Italian, Polish, Chinese, whatever, Jewish. Let's think of what each of our people contributes to this country. You take the Italians, for instance. The Italians are the great singers in the world. You got Toscanini, and you got Ezio Pinza, and you got Louis Prima. And then I said, well, take the Irish. They're the great writers of the world, Joyce and O'Casey. And then you got the Negro people. Those are the words we used to use. And then they are the great dancers. Bill Robinson and Bert Williams and Moke and Polk and the Nicholas Brothers. And then I said, the Jews are the great comedians. And all of a sudden, from the back of the room, a girl shouts out, "Fascist bastard!" And I was in shock. And her name was Theodora Kogel. She said, "Jerry, you're a fascist bastard." I said, "What are you talking about?" She says, "Because you think of people in ethnic stereotypes."
Right.
And I was in tears. I walked out of that class. I was devastated. And I really have to tell you, because I was such an idealist, I figured because I wanted to be an actor and on stage, no matter what a person's color, what language they spoke, wherever their parents came from, we were one family on the stage, and that in life, if you could bring it on in real life, that the world would be a better place. That was my idealism. Anyway, the end of the story is about a year ago, I was Upper West Side, Broadway. I was Sunday. They would have these bookstores where you look at books and browsing. I went by, and I was browsing in a book, and suddenly there was a tap on my shoulder. Elderly woman says, "Oh, Mr. Stiller?" I said, "Yes. I just want to tell you how much my husband and I really enjoy you and your wife on television." I said, "Thank you." She says, "I'm Theodora Kogel."
From the back of the room.
That's right. And I first thing that went through my head is, this is years, I said, "Fascist bastard." Then as she's walking away, I say to myself, wait a minute, should I go back and tell her this? I'm 70-something odd years old. So finally I said to her, "Excuse me, Theodora, can I ask you a question?" She says, "Yes, Jerry." I said, "Remember back in high school when I got up and I started talking about bringing the people together, and you called me a fascist bastard?" And she said, "Yes, Jerry, but I've mellowed."
There you are again. That's what
well, these are the ones. These are, oh my God, look at some of them.
Look at that.
Yeah. There's Estelle, when she was trying to play an older woman.
Still getting.
She was excellent. She's still great. She's a good friend. And there's Ralph. Now, Ralph was one of the members of the Boys Brotherhood Republic. I mentioned that at one point. I belonged to the BBR. It was a self-governing settlement house on the Lower East Side. It was on East 3rd Street. And we paid taxes. We had courts. The kids ran it themselves. I ran. And Ralph succeeded a man named George O'Goulian, who was the first supervisor. And this was one of the most important moments in my life that I, at 12 years old, went down there. I ran for city council, and I won. And I learned so much about self-government. And
it was a thing in your life that kind of
changed my life.
You look back on that and you see a picture. Is there a achievement, something that you look in yourself and say, "I feel great, I did that"?
Not really. I just say, look at, I'm hanging up here, which is good. And I'm hanging next to this guy, and I look at these people that made some real marks in their life. It's nice to have been part of all of this, but it seems like if you follow the rules or you put your mind to it, you will go from here to here to here. It was a hard fight,
It
but
was a long time ago.
I enjoyed
too.
it.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, and you're still here with us.
Thank you, thank
Which
you,
is wonderful.
thank you. Hey,
Hi, everybody.
hello there. Teachers work with me.
Teachers work.
Yeah, right.
This must be incredible.
It's nice to go back.
I know.
Yeah.
One more.
Kathleen Widows, that's her name. Her name
Kathleen
is
Widows.
Kathleen Widows. I don't know if you can get that.